I'm going to call the 3-month school board meeting to order for April 8th, and it's about 6:39. So if you could stand to salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do a roll call, please. Wyatt here,
Friends here.
Keen here, Kit here.
Full over here.
Okay, and we have presentation of the auditor. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Oh, good. Well, I did come to originally present the 2012, but we worked, Ashley did a great job and was able to, she finished up with Sue a couple weeks ago on the 13 audit. So she got that right through, and I actually reviewed it today and was able to bring the draft of the 13 audit for you tonight. So I don't know if you'd rather probably go over the 13, where that's a little more fresher
Right.
than the prior years.
Yep.
Now, if you wouldn't mind turning to page 1, this is page 1 and 2 are this is your opinion letter. Now, this letter is a little different from the 12 letter, because what they've done is the auditing standards have changed a little bit. So they want us to bold all the parts and to explain what each paragraph of the opinion is. So you'll see how we talk about what we're reporting on, what management's responsibility is of the financial statements, what my responsibility is as an auditor, and then the basis for our opinion. And what we're doing is we are going to qualify the opinion this year because of the OPEB. And if you would just turn to the last page for just a moment, I'm going to explain why we are going to qualify it. And it's because of your other post, that's on page 34. The other post-employment benefit liability hasn't been updated in the last few years. That has to be done annually, or at least at a minimum every 2 to 3 years. And the last valuation you had done was as of June 2011. So what we've done is we're just carrying forward that liability that was determined by an actuarial study back in 11. We've been carrying that balance forward for the last few years. Because we know you do have a liability, we just don't know how much it's either gone up or gone down based on retirees. There's a whole calculation that they have to do, which I'm not an actuarial, so I can't go into all what they look at. But your liability fluctuates year to year. So because you haven't had that study for the last 2 years, we're just leaving the liability on the book at $280,000. So that's a qualification because, again, we don't know how much it's gone up or down. So that's the only piece on your opinion letter that is keeping you from an unqualified opinion. So in the management letter that we have presented to you in the back of the report, we're just saying that you need to make sure you have that done, which, talking to Sue, I know that's going to be a priority to get that completed so that your 14 audit, this qualification will go away. Okay? And then again, if you're gonna, we left in the paragraph about a management's discussion and analysis. That is a required component, though if you don't do it, we just state that you don't do it, and that you haven't done it, and we just reflect it in the opinion letter. Right now, I've left it in that you might be doing a management's discussion and analysis. I think we've given you a sample that you can assist the school board with in completing. That's just your version. What you would do is you would add, it's a standard report that comes from management, being the board, that you would discuss so that the readers, the public, could, in your terms, they could understand why there maybe was an over expenditure in the instruction line, or an underestimated revenue on tuition, or it gives the reader more knowledge than what we can provide the reader in our financial statements. So again, this paragraph says that you're gonna do it, but if
What
you
page
don't
are
do
you
it, on page 2,
Okay,
that second paragraph, under emphasis of matter,
okay.
management's discussion and analysis. So if you didn't do it, we would just say that it wasn't provided. But again, that has no bearing on your opinion.
Has it been done in the past?
No, it's never been done.
Okay.
So,
I
but
didn't
once you
think
get
I
it
saw that
done,
in 12, yeah.
it's easy to keep it up to
going,
date.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's just that initial getting it going.
Yep.
But we have given you an example that's very easy to follow, and you can morph it in to meet your needs here. And then when you get it done, I would review it, go over it with you for any changes that might need to be made.
And where is that example?
That was emailed to you probably a couple weeks ago. I can have Heather
Okay,
email it
please,
to you.
yes.
Okay,
Okay,
and it's a very good one, it's very,
okay. It's like, yeah, template almost.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
template.
Okay. And when you say management's discussion, you refer to the school board?
Yes.
It's not the
It
superintendent?
would be this,
and-
it would be kind of a combination
Okay.
of the superintendent and yourselves,
Okay.
Oh, yeah, she gave me that.
okay? Now, I'm gonna take you to also to, so back on, so the management letter is just the fact that you wanna make sure that you get your actuarial study done, so we can do away with that qualification in your management letter, okay? Now, if you would turn to page 32, this is kinda everyone's favorite page. This is basically telling you where your unassigned fund balance is. I think since the last time I was here, we changed from unreserved to unassigned. New accounting standards change the terminology all the time. You started 2012, 2013 with a unassigned fund balance of $236,166. Of that, in 2012-13, you used $153,379 to offset the district assessment. During this year, you did have a revenue surplus of $87,653, which if you turn to page 30, the last column on that schedule will see how that $87,653 came into play. Basically, one of your biggest pieces was that your Medicaid money came in over budget by $54,000. Then back to page 32, you also had unexpended balance of appropriations of $182,497, which comes from page 31, which is showing you basically your beginning of the year encumbrances added to the current year budget, and then you subtract out the current year expenditures less the current year encumbrances to give you a unexpended balance of $182,497. Again, one of the larger areas that you had that savings in was for under special programs and student services. Okay? Now, with those two numbers added together on page 32, you ended up with an overall budget surplus of $270,150, which was added to that beginning fund balance less the use of fund balance to give you a new unassigned fund balance of $352,937.
And this was what went back to the town?
No,
This-
this is what was left after this past year.
Right.
When we finished June 30th, 2013.
What was
Right.
that? So this is what,
2013.
all this went back to the town?
No, we'll go back.
Oh, we'll go back.
Yeah,
It's just been assessment.
yeah.
Alright. So, okay, so we're looking at giving $352,000 back to the town.
Right.
Well,
Unless you have, did you, now,
Let's-
well,
let's
can
read
we,
it.
can you explain to me then why we only gave back 153,379 of the 236,166 we had the year before?
that I do not know why. I'm not sure why that is. I know,
I mean, we can't hold on to it, so do we?
no, I
so-
think at the time that the 153 was used, that was, those, if memory serves me correctly, because I was here for the 12 audit myself,
Mhm.
we came in after the tax rate was set. So I think she was being cautious in setting the tax rate, and then when I came in, there were some mismatchings of expenditures. There was also some receivables, I think, that she hadn't picked up that when I came to do the audit, I had found. So there were some errors that she didn't account for, because I do remember having this, now that you say that, we had this discussion, and she said, well, I used 153, but I came up with the 236, and it was because some of the encumbrances weren't reported properly.
So where's that extra money sitting then?
So basically, the difference between the 236 and the 153,
Oh, okay.
it kind of falls down into that 352 number.
Okay.
So it didn't go back last year, it's essentially going back
Okay.
this year.
And that's in November, when the tax rate is, when is the tax rate set?
Anywhere from middle of September to middle of November.
So usually they say that's over first.
So-
right?
And don't forget, they didn't do the 12 audit until after I started.
Yeah,
So,
just catching up.
Right, so
So-
what I'm trying to put in my notes for tax setting time is that we're gonna return 352,937.
Mhm.
that's correct.
Yes.
So, and, sorry, but I'm.
Because
no.
this is done on time now, so we should be able to use it in the
Exactly.
fall to
Yeah.
offset the taxes that we just saw as an
270,000 what we
increase,
left
that
at
should
the end
help
of
the
last.
taxpayers a lot.
236, 166, yes.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
That means that,
I think it's good.
that's good news, that means
So offset.
yeah, it's only $148,000 extra that the taxes will be based on, which is actually almost level funding.
There you go.
Means actually no tax increase at all.
How do you figure? We had a $500 and something thousand increase in our operating
Well, because you
budget.
take that,
How do you-
oh, no, that's from last year, right? This is from, because you take the increase in the operating budget, you subtract what we're giving back to the town, and that's what the tax rate's based on. And then if you look at the increase in town assessment, which is about $8 million, and 70% of that is $155,000, which was all we could spend to level fund the budget without
Okay.
tax increase.
Okay.
So we're actually.
Okay, so you're right.
So we'd
So
actually
now
end
we-
up giving taxes a little tiny, a penny or so back, a half a penny or back to the town.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think that's something you need to tell the selectmen next time I meet them. Yeah,
And actually, with that number, with that 352, if you wouldn't mind turning to page 6, this is your balance sheet for all your major funds as well as your non-major funds. But that first column on the left-hand side is for the general fund. And at the bottom, it does show the unassigned balance of 352,937.
we're page 6.
Page 6,
Sorry.
the first
I
column.
was still writing notes.
But in
Okay.
addition to the unassigned, you also have a signed fund balance of 27,963. What that number represents were purchase orders or
Mhm.
encumbrances that were rolled forward into this current year that you're in for various items. And they are reflected on page 31 in the fourth column by function. So you'll see by what function they apply to.
Oh, okay, that's the, oh, there it is, I see it now, yeah. Special programs, instructional
Right.
staff.
So in other words, they're things that will be paid for in 13-14 that really apply to 12-13.
Right.
Gotcha. So you were able to pull that budget forward,
Mhm.
because you probably had purchase orders. I've had people before try to just pull balances of line items forward as an encumbrance, and we check that, and
Mhm.
you can't do that. But we have people that try. So we test those and make sure they're valid, and they were, and that's what you're carrying through.
They were like work in progress.
Mhm.
So that's
We-
stuff
we
we're getting
do
this year
try.
that was due from last.
In the past year, in June, we've said, okay, what does John need, or what does Scott need for the
Mhm.
building, and what do we wanna maybe use some of our fund balance for, and we will issue the board will vote to issue purchase orders
Mhm.
for those things that were not in the line items of the budget.
Right.
That's okay to do, correct?
Before June 30th.
Before June 30th, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's not,
June 29th.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
advisable, but you can do it.
Yeah.
I don't, because I just don't like spending money in June. You don't really know what your fund balance is gonna be.
Yeah.
Well, you should this month.
Yeah, and luckily,
Right.
you've gotten, you have a report, and like with your report here that Sue shared with me, I think we did this a couple years ago. What you wanna do is this is a very important report, is your statement of expenditures. And you've got one by fund, but the nice thing about it is it does show you,
One second, it's in your board packet, is what she's looking at,
Right.
Shannon.
Yeah,
is that you've got, basically, it's pulling in any types of encumbrances that you have, any open purchase orders, so that you can see the remaining balance on a line item. So you can monitor this very closely and ask Sue if, geez, we're going over budget here by, $12,000, what's going on?
That's the
She
one
can
we
go
get
back.
every.
That's exactly what she's looking at,
Yeah.
what's in your
So
packet
this is
tonight.
very
But you've
important.
always been giving us those, right?
I've
Right.
given you those, and in my report, I explain each variance to you by month, and often they're accompanied by a budget transfer that needs to make the line positive again.
Good idea.
the budget committee gets that
Well,
too, right?
we have,
No, they
we've,
should be.
Yeah,
we-
supposed to be getting it.
taken DBJ out of the picture, so any transfer has to get approval before it's
So
done.
that's good.
Right.
Yeah, that's good, so you
Up to a
really
certain
know
amount.
exactly what's going on.
Tammy's allowed to sign off up to a certain amount, but
Up to
After
$1,000,
that.
right.
So,
we
and
have to-
likewise, with this expenditure report, you also wanna, and I think Sue may be giving it to you, or we've talked about this, is, because I just had a situation happening, in a water district. But they were monitoring their appropriations, their expenditures, they were looking at them, but unfortunately, what they weren't watching was the revenue side of the budget. And I've had this happen in a school district too. A couple of weeks ago, when I was in a water district, we were looking at their budget, and they made a budgeting error on the revenue side by $100,000. And that's like $1 million to a large entity, it's a small water district. So what happened, they overestimated their water rents that they were gonna be getting in. So I've told them for their budget, because they're a calendar year, for 2014, I said, that $1 million budget that you got approved and went to town meeting, got voted on and approved? They're like, yes. I said, it's now $900,000. Because they're not getting the money in to make
Right.
them afford to make all those expenditures. So they
Right.
have to go and redo, I told them immediately, you've gotta go back, take that $1 million budget and now make it 900,000.
Right.
And they just had a massive water break in their, for their district. So I said, and you have to factor in now this big water break that they have to repair.
Because the issue is if the revenues are $900,000, expenditures are $1 million, there's no tax, there's no taxes that was raised for the extra $100,000.
Right,
So that,
it's gotta come from
it's
somewhere,
gotta have to transfer from another part of the budget.
right, or it's gotta come from your fund balance.
From your fund balance, right.
Right,
Right,
so-
because they can't expend beyond their revenue.
Exactly.
They can, right.
And I had a school district do the same thing about 10 years ago. They overestimated all their revenues, it didn't get picked up at the state level.
Mhm.
They were in the hole by $500,000. And the superintendent was new, and I had to break the bad news to her, and I said, you have to start cutting back right now, because you don't have the money to pay all your bills. So immediately, I think this was in 1st of October, I had to tell you have to put a freeze on your expenditures immediately. So it's very important to watch your revenue and your budget, so when you start seeing, geez, we've got a budget for, $100,000 in Medicaid, but we've only gotten $2,000 in, you wanna go and ask Sue, what's going, why is that? You should check into it. So, and then conversely, you may see Medicaid, in your case here, it came in a lot higher. So the revenue budget is just as important as that expenditure.
And
budget.
usually you do give us both, but
I
this-
haven't been
Right.
since I started, because they're not, the revenue,
Yeah, we've been getting revenue.
couple, but they're not caught up to date,
All right.
because they weren't before I got here.
Okay.
And that's one of the things I keep saying, that I'm working on that, it's coming,
Yeah.
All right.
yeah, it's one of the things I'm still in the process of.
Okay.
You didn't get to it only 5 hours on Sunday afternoon this week?
Jeez. Yeah.
I know we've seen
Yeah.
some revenue sheets attached
Yeah,
for
we have.
expenditures, they just might not be up to date, is what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah, I think that was during budget season, that we were doing it when we were projecting the revenue, so I honestly, yeah, it's definitely on my list, and it just keeps getting shifted, yeah.
But yeah, those are two
Yeah.
really vital
No.
reports that you wanna look at,
I mean,
just to
I've
kinda
been
know how where
monitoring
you
them.
are.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been monitoring them on my own closely, but the one thing though that Cheryl had said was like our Medicaid revenues exceeded what we thought, but that doesn't mean we can spend that money either.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't go beyond
The
the
bottom.
Right.
budget, we can't
Just
go
so
beyond
you
the
know, I
bottom
just
line.
wanted to clear that
That
up.
just
Yeah.
offsets another part of the
Yeah.
budget.
Right.
Exactly. Well, it
Right.
becomes part of the money that you return.
Yeah,
Oh, to
Goes
return,
back to
right.
taxpayer.
yeah.
Oh, that's fine
Which
with me.
they already honestly spent their money on anyway,
Right.
because Medicaid is a reimbursement. So
Exactly.
the taxpayers have already paid for those services.
Yeah,
Because-
exactly.
Right,
They pay for everything that's being done, and then you might get reimbursed for some of it.
Right.
Which then goes back to where it belongs. So
Yeah.
it's-
So that's kind of the audit in a nutshell.
right.
Again, on page 6, the balance sheet also, you'll see the food service fund. You have a fund balance in food service of $6,668.
Oh, really?
What makes that up is your inventory balance, part of the inventory. We call that non-spendable balance because it's not easily converted to cash.
That's page 6? you're talking
Page
about?
6. And then that's the second column.
Oh, food service, I see it, yeah.
And then the restricted fund balance, we restrict fund balance in a food service fund because of the federal guidelines that monitor or manage federal money. This is, even though you're getting in a lot of charges from the students, the federal government kind of calls that federal money. So we show it as restricted fund balance.
Now-
That's why.
Now, what do you call it in food service, what are you looking at as an asset? Just cash, just the cash and
Cash.
equivalents? Now, what's the equivalents?
In this case, it's just the terminology, it's just cash and maybe petty cash,
All right,
okay? Accounts receivable, money due from students.
all right.
The intergovernmental
The
receivable,
money due from students.
right,
But
and I would
not
have to,
necessarily money that's been paid by students, no, like.
No, that's outstanding.
That's
Right.
outstanding.
Right,
and then the intergovernmental, that's the money due for that's your May and June reimbursement that you get from the state,
Alright.
which is your federal apportionment,
Alright.
federal and state apportionment.
mhm.
And then the inventory is actually, the can of peaches, the frozen hot dogs in the freezer
And
that
Cheryl,
didn't get used.
she had mentioned that maybe she wasn't gonna include the inventories the next time because we have a food service management company. Would that
Oh,
make
okay,
sense?
and that's fine too,
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, because they'll,
It's not our, yeah,
Right.
exactly,
yeah.
yeah,
So it kind of offsets, luckily on the balance sheet, it's offsetting itself.
right.
But that's what the inventory is, it's the leftover food
Mhm.
that you may have gotten from USDA or
Right.
you've purchased and it's just in the in the storage room for next
And I
year.
think this is different than what is in that budget packet, because I think in the budget packet it says it zeros itself out.
Yeah,
Because that won't include the assets,
Right.
stuff like that.
right.
All right.
So this means that at the end of 2013, kids who bought lunch and teachers or whoever that bought lunch owed us $11,488.
There may be another receivable in there, I'll have to check and I'll let Sue know in the morning. I didn't bring the work papers with me, but some of that is money that students owe you. I'm not sure if it's 100% the 11,000.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. what
I
else
don't
it could be.
remember. I looked at it, but I don't recall. There could be another receivable from
Doesn't-
someone else in that.
Doesn't that roll into the next year though, if you owe a balance in a child's account, doesn't, following year, you still have to owe it, right?
Right, yeah, it just
You
rolls
should.
forward, but what you wanna do, and I was just looking at another district today, that the receivable, in this one particular district, it's bigger than yours, but not by a lot. They had a $25,000 receivable. They had a receivable for some students that had been on the books since kindergarten, and they were now in 9th grade.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Exactly, yeah.
So you wanna,
Some point
definitely
you
you
should
wanna
forget.
look at as a policy,
Mhm.
for collections, so that these balances don't keep building and building, because what we find as we
Okay.
do
This might
this,
be 20 years ago.
yeah,
Could you
People
check,
will-
could you check for us to see what that
Yeah,
I'll
number is
check.
made up of?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't think it's all.
I know, it sounds pretty high,
Yeah,
but
I think
again,
it's a
it could be
combination.
cumulative. I
If
don't
it's
know.
20 years of-
I'm wondering if, well, if it was cumulative, then last year's would have had a big number.
Yeah, did you have last year's?
Yeah.
Let's see, last year's, Yeah, last year's was 12,049. So if you have the management company, it's possible that that receivable is some of the money they owe you back at the end of the
Exactly.
year.
That's what I was just gonna
Oh.
say.
I think that's what that is.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I think
now,
it's a
if-
combination
now,
of
if they
two
o-
things.
If they overbilled us, they.
Yeah, usually in your agreement, if they
And
make
you know
money
what?
for
That
you,
is
you
what
get
it
some of
is.
that
They
back.
do do
Yeah,
that.
that is what it is, I believe, now that I
Okay.
think about it. I had to provide that to Ashley, that
Okay.
documentation, what they owed, but we'll confirm it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We can-
well, in the
yeah.
morning, I'll send you an email,
All right.
okay? And then your grants, again, all your federal grants that you receive, the balance sheet, you have a receivable due from the state of 53,520. You had accounts payable at the end of June of 1,865, and then you had a interfund payable due back to the general fund of 51,655. That's because you don't have a cash account for the grants fund. It
Right.
flows from the operating account in the general fund through a loan account, which is called an interfund. And when everything flushes through this loan account. And at the end of the year, once that receivable is received from the state, it will wipe out that interfund balance,
All
okay?
right,
So-
yeah, I see what you're saying, because
Cash
the
goes
accounts
into-
payable and the interfund payable is the same thing as the
The receivable.
receivable.
Yep.
Okay.
So you never have to worry about any, collection problems in the grants.
Mhm.
They match dollar for dollar,
Right,
so that's always a good thing.
so what you're saying is we haven't gotten that grant money yet.
Right. As of June 30th, you hadn't gotten it, but by now you have, you've collected it, and this is now gone to zero, or there's a new number in play because of your new grants,
All right.
okay? And then just in between, from pages 14 all the way back through page 27, these are all the notes to the financial statement. So on some of the more material notes or numbers, you'll see, we give you explanations. What is cash and equivalents? What makes up investments? And then that's all in note 1. And then as you go through notes 2, 3, 4, all the way down through, you'll see what makes up your capital assets. What are your capital lease obligations? So we give you more detail through the notes too, that will explain the numbers on the balance sheet, as well as the government-wide statements on which are exhibits A and B. That's when we blend all your funds together, and they want the schools and the towns to report more like a business, so we have to blend everything together. I tend not to go over those, because what really is important to you is what we've just gone over, that exhibit C1 and then the schedule in the back. So what we'll do now from here is that you'll have a chance to go through this and review it. I did say to Sue that in the back, it's not here now, because this was hot off the press before I left the office. We'll put in a comment on page 34 for management's response, so that you can put your response to that OPEB finding, that you're working on it, or whatever you see fit, and we'll put that in the report, so the reader can say, oh, okay, they're handling it. So that will go in, and then once the draft is approved, and if you are gonna do an MD&A, once we get that, we'll be able to go final with this and then give you the final report.
Because one thing I'll say is that, that she's talking about the post-employment benefits, that's what held up the audit last year. Because, a decision couldn't be made whether to hire the actuarial company or not. So when we got the 12 audit, we knew that it existed, and we talked about it very briefly, that we knew it was something that needed to be fixed, but we weren't gonna take the time to hold up this audit as well, and we knew we needed to comply in the 13-14. So, we just didn't wanna hold up another audit.
Right,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I think we'll get back on track with it.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question about page 6?
Yes,
The investments under general column?
yes.
Could you tell me what that is?
That is, and I put it on page, that is money, if you go to page 20, it's just a simple little blurb, but you have $407,790 in New Hampshire Public Deposit Investment Pool. and it's just another bank account. At one time, it used to earn better interest than it is now. But like 10 years ago, they were the best deal in town to
7-8%.
put your extra money in to earn a better rate of return.
Mhm.
Right now, it's under 1%.
Right.
So you just have some money in there that maybe you just, you transfer the money at times, or the treasurer does when she needs to cover some bills, she'll put money in here,
I
or
gotcha.
she'll take it out.
So
But
it's like if she uses it to replenish the checking account,
Yeah.
that
That's
needs it.
just how
Yeah.
Betty, uses.
Yeah.
Now, I have I just want, just need to talk again on page 2, management discussion and
Yes.
analysis. So, what you're saying, I didn't quite understand what you're talking about. What you're saying is that there has to be discussion, documented discussion between the school board and administration regarding, certain aspects of the budget,
Of the financial statements.
of the financial
Yeah,
statement.
there's 7 or 8 requirements that you have to put into this discussion.
All right.
One of them is,
Is that in here?
not yet.
All right.
This is something that Sue will have to
All right.
The
start
letter
to.
from Heather, the template.
Yes, I'm gonna
Right.
email a
Oh, for the template.
sample
Okay.
from another school district.
Mhm.
That's a very good one, because it's got all the required components. It's got good, there's some boilerplate to this discussion and analysis, but you have to discuss, like, if you've got major budget variances.
Right.
Like, say, for example, on page 31,
Mhm.
you underspent your special programs
Right.
by 101,000.
Right.
You could put a little blurb in there, this is why we did.
All right.
Or if we overspent by
Right.
this is why, this is what
I
happened.
mean, that, we do address that obliquely, because we do go through the financial statement, we do ask questions
Mm-hmm,
at the meeting, and that's in the minutes,
right,
but it's not on the financial statement. So
Right.
basically, we need to put the financial statement, when we ask questions, we get an answer,
mm-hmm,
then that needs to be put on the financial statement.
right, and it's all summarized in this report.
All right,
And where it will go is right after the opinion letter
all right,
will be your report, your
Alright.
discussion and analysis.
all right.
And it will be
Oh, okay.
bound, it gets bound in here as part of the audit.
All right, so you're talking about the financial statement, at the end of the year financial statement?
Yes.
That we have to have the discussion, not
Yes.
everything, not our monthly one.
No, just an annualized,
The annualized one, and there's a
Yeah.
template that if you go by, and then that gets put in
gets bound right with the audit report.
with the audit report.
Yep,
Okay,
so
I
as
understand
people,
that.
the first thing they're gonna read is your discussion,
All right,
and then you'll refer to the financials proceeding
All
this.
right.
It's a way of being absolutely sure that you understand what's happening.
oh, yeah,
Right.
no, that's a good idea.
It's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
cause it does, it makes you think.
It should take us a
Well-
while
well-
to write it.
I mean, it's great because, it forces us to look at it and ask
I mean,
questions.
Right.
And then, and we get answers, and then everyone can read them.
Exactly.
Which should be
Which is-
happening anyway, so
Yeah,
that's
which is,
best practice.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, it happens informally.
Informal.
We
It
do
does,
ask
yeah.
questions, it
Just
does get in the
formalized.
minutes, but it's not an actual statement that we put in.
And it's,
in with
like
it.
you said, it's week to week, month to month, this
Right.
would be
Annualized.
how it ended up
Right.
on June 30th.
Right, we could actually compile, as we ask questions throughout the year, we can compile those discussions throughout the year, and then at the end of the year,
Yeah,
that
you
could,
just refer to
we
it.
can, we can
Yeah.
refer to it, or we can
Good idea.
get back to it, so that way, because we do have discussions every month on the budget.
Mhm.
So we could have like an ongoing
Mhm.
discussion that
That's a great
maybe as part of the minutes or something like that, so it'd be easy to
Yeah.
look up, and
That
that way
would
we
be-
just go back.
that's a great
Just
idea.
knowing from experience dealing with other towns and schools, some people struggle, like, they're like, I'll get back to you, I know there was this
Yeah.
variance, but I gotta research it, so if
Right.
you had it at your fingertips,
That'd be great.
it would save you a lot of time.
So the next step, I'll get the template, and then the next meeting, we'll bring it and start work on it.
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
look on it, yeah.
Yeah, so if you wanna do it for this,
Mhm.
I'll wait for that, and then once I get it, I review it, I'll turn it back to you,
Mhm.
and with any maybe some minor changes, and then we'll bind it up into the report. Because
Alright.
we don't require a legal letter
Mhm.
this year, so we don't have to contact the attorney.
Mhm.
So, once we get that, it's good to
Save
go,
us some money.
yeah.
Concept.
Yeah,
So, very good.
Any other questions?
Thank
Oh, good.
that was
Thank you.
wonderful.
Oh,
Good,
good, well, thank
good
you.
explanation what it means.
Oh, good, well, thank you. Yeah, I like to come out and talk, and I apologize.
No.
Numbers are boring, I'm sorry. So,
Yeah, but important.
yes,
Actually, they're very important.
And you've got good news.
Yes, good. So, thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks, Cheryl. I'll be in touch with you.
Okay, and I'll send that to you tomorrow.
Okay, so we're gonna move right to strategic plan process preparation with Mark Dolan facilitating. Please, join us.
Thank you. Hello. So what you need to think about, and I had sent out some read-ahead material, hopefully you had a chance to see it, is a schedule for strategic planning. Sounds like you wanted to begin soon, like this month, April, completing around September timeframe. So that's plenty of time to go through the process. I sent you out a sample schedule that had 2 times a month a workshop.
Page 4 of the packet, everybody, in case you need to look at it.
So that's one thing, is deciding on a timeline, and these are flexible, certainly. This isn't set in stone by any means. Another thing you'll want to, and we should talk about tonight, is establishing a committee to do all the detailed work as part of this process. Charging that committee as soon as possible. And then with the committee, I would work closely to establish dates for this.
So how do you usually go about getting committee members? In the past, I don't know how to do the committee, actually. I just remember the focus groups was an invitation to anybody who wanted to come, for like parent group, teacher group, and administrative group. But as far as the committee goes,
And this would be a strategic planning committee, probably made up 10 to 15 people, is a good number. You can ask for volunteers, you can select people that you think would be good, a little bit of both methods.
It would be good to have a representation across all stakeholder groups.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
right,
So leadership
community
at the
members,
school.
you had community members, students, teachers, and parents,
That's right.
right?
Budget committee's great to have somebody.
Yeah.
that's something like that come with the committee.
So do we normally send out the invitation or the letter inviting people to the first meeting and letting them know what it entails? Is that what happens usually?
Yes, usually
Okay.
you can do that, or I can send something to them.
Mm-hmm.
Either
We just
way.
provide you with the list and the contact
Right.
information.
Right.
Okay.
And then usually the first meeting with the committee, I'll sit down, we'll go over the charge so that they know their responsibility. We'll go over the schedule, make sure there's no major conflicts.
That would be the 30th of April according to the timeline.
Okay.
So how we would, let's say, pick 15, let's say we probably wanna pick 30, and then send one out to 15, and then if it doesn't get filled in, we would send out another
To make
5.
sure you get 50.
Yeah, or,
Um,
you know, cause we only get like 6 for the
Right.
first response, we
Right.
should probably have an extensive list.
Because this is a time commitment, so
Mhm.
you're right, you're likely, you want to give them enough information so they know what they're committing to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a 6-month time commitment, twice a month, 2 to 3 hours,
Mhm.
with some homework, you know, preparation work
Mm-hmm.
on their own prior to coming to meetings. So they need to understand the commitment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say sending it out to a larger number probably makes sense.
So not the, okay.
And if you get 20 to 30, I think that's fine too.
So is this a committee, Mark, where you actually, the committee will form and they will elect a chair? Or would you handle, as the facilitator, would you just pretty much help run those committee meetings?
I would facilitate those.
Similar to what you did for us at the workshop?
That's right.
Okay,
They
good.
still have to take minutes, though,
Well,
right?
yeah, he
Yep.
provided us.
Yeah,
with
there'll be
those.
minutes.
Yeah, they have to send the minutes and it'd be a committee of the school board, so, yeah, we have to get monthly updates or reports or
Right.
something.
And typically the superintendent's on the strategic planning committee
Right.
and members of the school board as well.
Right.
So we need to charge a committee, then provide you with names and contact information.
Yes,
As soon as possible,
right.
to get it going.
Mhm. Okay, so we can do that this evening, I'm sure. We can
Okay.
probably
Right.
go right off the charge that you gave us,
Right.
and use that as the example as we work our way through it.
Sure.
But I'll let you continue on your timeline
Okay.
first, and then we'll do that at the end.
So how does, as a kind of template for a timeline, how does, twice a month sound for meeting as we go through the spring and the summer into the fall? And at any time, the board can ask, and usually the superintendent is the communication vehicle for status, how are things going? Certainly I can come in and do that as well, if the board, the full board would want to know how things are going. So does that sound reasonable to?
I think it sounds
Yeah,
great.
well,
I think
yeah,
it's the kind of
year.
thing that has to be done like every 2 to 3 weeks, so that you
Right, that's
keep
right.
your momentum
For
going.
momentum. Think of it as a 6-month conversation with the community around the future of the school district. That's really what it is.
Mhm.
It isn't a committee going off on their own, by themselves, for 6 months, and they show up with this plan. I want this, and I designed this to be as inclusive as possible. Right, so the meetings, anyone can come to the meetings of the committee to ask questions, see what's going on.
Right, they have to be open to the public.
Right, so it's very inclusive.
I think that's good. We should do that. It's great.
No, I think we should, yeah, I mean, I think, like the strategic plan we have is kind of, in many ways, it's no longer applicable.
Well, it's time for.
Good, I mean, it's time for one anyway, but there really is, I mean,
And
some
some of the priorities are changing.
priorities changing, some of the data has changed a lot, so, I mean, there's a whole section on, whether to build a new school building based on projected enrollment, which is right now 140 less than what was projected. So that changes the whole, I mean, it changes, taking a look at the capital infrastructure and everything else like that.
Well, I was noticing in the charge
Yeah.
that there's a purpose, and the only fill-in, of course, is September 2014. I don't know if we need to be any more specific on the date right now for the charge, other than get it done in September, by September. And then the goal to develop a 3 to 5 year plan that focuses action on these areas of importance. And then you have a blank. So you're looking for areas of importance from the board for the charge to the committee?
Yes.
Okay, so the
High level,
building, budget, curriculum, whatever.
right, that's right.
Okay.
See, I almost don't wanna do
I
that
was
based
gonna
on,
say, yeah.
That's
only
fine.
because the last time the strategic plan was done, the focus groups got together and we had rooms full of parents and we
Right.
had a room full of teachers. And they told us what was important to them in a brainstorm session. And then they rated them after that. Everybody rated them in the room. And then all the
Yeah.
groups were combined and they rated them. So that it was their ideas, not the school boards at all, about what they should be doing. It gave us a real good idea of what people wanted the school to be, or the
Okay.
district to be.
I would leave that.
Just leave that section
Yeah, I'll
out?
leave that out.
Okay. That makes it easier.
It does. And what I like to do at the beginning is have a community forum. Get the community involved right at the beginning, let them know that the school district is embarking on a new strategic plan, their input is welcome. And then at that forum, start gathering input from the community, right at the beginning. So the committee is at that meeting, they're facilitating, so to speak, the community discussions around that. So the committee walks away with a pretty good idea of what the town has said, what the community has said, and then builds on that. And then at any time during the process, what you wanna be careful of is you don't have too many strategic initiatives. You can't get, but you can't get it done.
I think that's
So
the problem.
getting down to the vital few might be something that you want to be involved in, for budget reasons, resource reasons, we just can't do it
Now,
all.
can the school board, can we kind of set those parameters, can we say that these are 3 areas we like to look into? Or should that come out of the, because I mean, one area that is really necessarily needs to be looked at is the building. What are we gonna, you know?
Well,
I mean,
that's,
so I don't know.
that's your opinion, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm,
Okay,
yeah,
so, and I know
right.
that's a big baby of
Right,
yours,
right.
but what we did is, the board and the administration were another focus group, and we did the same brainstorming that
Right.
the community did.
Right,
And so, you got the school board's
all right,
ideas, because
Right.
we participated in brainstorming
Alright.
too, and then we rated our own as
Right.
well, so that, and then we compared it to the communities
Alright.
to make sure we were all on the same page, because after all, we do represent the community, so,
Mhm.
I'd say wait and see.
Alright.
yeah.
all right.
So we need a
It's
vote
like
to
so.
charge the committee.
So, basically, we'd like to,
Adopt the charges given here.
I can read it, and then somebody can motion it, and we can do it that way, so, we'd like to basically, what's the word I'll say charter a committee, we don't usually use that word here, but that's okay.
Oh, charge, you charge.
Yeah, to charter a committee to, develop a strategic plan for the school district and present this plan to the school board for review and approval by September 2014. Background, the school board has decided to embark on strategic planning to improve the district's ability to anticipate and plan for changes while creating lasting positive improvement in student learning. The goal is to develop a 3 to 5 year plan that focuses action on the school district. The membership would be, the committee would be comprised of the superintendent, the school leaders and staff, school board members, SAU personnel, parents, students, and community members, including budget committee and perhaps selectmen,
And maybe police.
and police, and fire. The scope of the effort, this committee will work from April 2014 to September 2014 to develop and prioritize long-range strategic goals and produce a comprehensive strategic plan. These goals will be based on anticipated trends in education, student enrollment, local demographics, and other school district areas of concern as they apply to student needs. This committee will communicate as appropriate with staff, administrators, parents, other school board members, town officials, and the community at large. A formal meeting schedule will be published. Status reporting. This committee or a representative from the committee will report to the school board the status of strategic planning efforts and will present a final plan by September 2014.
Do we need is 2014 good enough, or do we need a date in September? Do we need to be more specific?
By the end of September
End of September.
2014.
Yeah, by
September
September
30th.
30th?
September 30. I'll
Yeah.
make all of those September 30.
Yeah.
Okay,
Approval by September 30.
And the scope of, and this committee work from, May 1st or
no, April.
April
April.
30th is the first meeting, so,
April 30th, okay?
You have to be,
so it has to be put into place.
To, okay, to when?
9:30.
To 9:30? All right,
So moved.
We'll get this typed up.
all right.
mhm.
Second?
Any discussion?
I think it's great.
I'm fine.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So it looks like we're gonna be in touch. Because the board will have to talk about, well, the board can talk right now about who wants to serve on this strategic planning committee.
I do not have the time.
Anybody interested in serving on strategic planning committee on the board?
I'd be interested, but I can't do the 30th. I
Yeah.
have a prior commitment
All right.
on
On
April 30th.
April 30th?
All right, I mean, just the meetings, because teachers are gonna be, if teachers are gonna participate, the meetings would probably have to be at 3:30 in the afternoon.
And that would probably be a problem.
That
Between 3
would,
and
most
4.
often, they just, if they're going to commit to it, they make a night commitment.
Making that commitment?
Yes.
Yeah,
it's
if it's
part of
night,
it.
I can
Really?
do it.
Yeah,
All right,
and if you, oftentimes you'll get local people who can come back to the school easily.
all right, because that, okay.
That it could be anybody's.
I'm pretty sure the focus groups we did were during the summer too, so it was anytime, we came in during the summer and,
All right,
Yeah, that's still to be determined, but the original, the initial meetings are.
right.
are evening
So,
But the committee can decide.
so do I have anybody that can do?
If it's night, I can do it that first one.
Usually it's evenings and sometimes weekends, but again, the committee can decide.
Well, maybe Greg and Shane can kind of work it together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, good,
sounds good.
great. So thank you, Mark. Did you need anything else from us right now?
No?
Okay, we'll get the list
Send me
together,
the list of names,
contacts.
and then I will go from there.
Yeah, I'm thinking that we might wanna look at the curriculum committee members who were very active.
Right,
And, okay, Sue Kenny.
right.
If you have any people on other committees, certainly, if they have the time, that is a good cross.
I can use a complete list of all the curriculum
Mhm.
committee members. Who'd I send that to?
Do you wanna,
I'll
okay.
coordinate stuff.
You
Okay.
probably have that list too, right? I'll send it
Yes,
to
I
you.
do.
Yes, you do.
Yeah,
You have
I
that
can
list.
pull stuff off.
All right.
Let me put together a spreadsheet, I'll
Okay.
send it to you,
Okay.
of everything I know so far.
All right, sounds good.
I would usually, I'll keep the superintendent informed before I go out to a larger group.
So when are we gonna determine
Great.
who we send the list out to? Is that gonna be determined tonight?
We're going to have to launch a memo to the public and maybe put it out on an email blast as well as
Right.
perhaps in the town newsletter, letting them know that we're doing the strategic planning committee, because even if they miss the first meeting, they could certainly
Right.
join after
And
that.
there's
May
some-
I make a suggestion,
Yeah. Mhm.
because we don't meet again until the 28th, and this committee is going to have to be taken care of
Yes.
before that. I would suggest that you charge a member or two of the committee to determine that list, and give that to Mark, and that they will be the people, everybody can give input,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but they will be the people who do it between now and then to make sure it
I could,
happens.
I'd do that.
We'd like to work on the
Yeah.
list committee, okay?
Andy, so we send you everything that we can think of that, and we will,
Yeah.
then you will all,
Send me the kitchen sink.
Well, Andy and somebody else should look at that together.
Yeah,
Be the-
someone else.
Be the subcommittee that makes the list for,
So we should have at least two people.
yeah.
Tim, you wanna do it?
I'm sorry.
You wanna do it?
Just say yes.
Put
Okay,
together a
help to
list?
compile the strategic planning list for Mark to work on and start to contact people. Okay.
Now, as far as gathering community input, do you want that to be left up to the committee and the superintendent?
Is there a survey that you've done in the past that we could set up a link online and people could just get on and do it?
Certainly, yes, that's an option.
So the committee could go over the questions and those things with you at the meeting?
Right.
Okay,
We can decide that at the first meeting, how to engage the community,
yeah.
whether it be a face-to-face forum and a survey, or a survey, either way is fine.
Okay, I think that's it.
All right?
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I thought the recap on the workshop was great too.
Oh, it was.
very. We have to continue working on our old strategic plan objectives that are still available.
Right.
It never ends, which is a good
It's
thing.
like laundry.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Agenda revisions, do we have any? I did not.
The only question I have is, I know we have a lot of people here who probably would like to not be here all night. And I know that their interest may be items 1 and 2 of particular items.
Right.
So does the board want to entertain maybe perhaps moving those up in the conversation so that people could go home and see their loved ones?
Mhm.
Is there anything else of importance that you're here for? All of the public, do you know which agenda items are important that you want to stay for, so that we can move those forward, besides section 12, 1 and 2?
That would be the FEA petition request and the setting of the teaching positions for next year.
I'm here for the night, but I would think people would want to be here for the review of the fiscal year 15 budget as well.
Mhm.
But I don't want to speak for everybody else.
And perhaps we could put off administrative reports instead of other business. After the minutes.
Sure.
Those 3 items.
Okay, so we'll just move the tabled, the section B up to after public input? I think we should, after public input.
And the government, about suing the government.
Yeah. Well, it could be a long night if you're gonna stick.
Well, not really that long, actually. I'm gonna ask.
It's gonna be well before.
I'm gonna ask for that to be tabled a little bit, so.
So 13, D and E. We'll also move up, we'll just move those up to right after 1 through 4. Okay, correspondence, I do not have any. Okay. Approval of minutes, public minutes of March 25th.
I don't have any updates.
I have only one item.
I just had, at the bottom of page 9, in section 8, under correspondence, second to the last, paragraph, Sarah Dolan sent a note on behalf of the Ellis School support staff thanking the board for supporting the contract and asking for a recount.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, even though it did not pass. Did anybody else have any other changes?
Top of page 12, capitalized kindergarten.
Thank you.
It's a German word in the
Oh,
capitalized. You didn't know.
no, I don't know anything about German. I am, four
And then-
generations removed.
Sue, I don't think it was just my printer, I think that the alignment under, section I, planning for a new strategic plan, was kind of
Oh,
funky.
yep, okay, I'll fix
Okay.
it, yep,
Yeah,
And the same at the bottom of 12.
yep.
yeah. Oh, and then, on page 13, it says Ms. Kitt suggested the school board meeting dates could be noted on the Ellis electronic sign in front of Ellis School.
Okay,
Yeah,
There's just have to be a little cross-training in there.
okay.
and that's all I had. So, oh, no, I'm sorry, I had one more. Roman numeral 15, that's how I feel too. Future and follow-up agenda items. It said Ms. Keene suggested that the administrators' meeting reports to the school board be streamlined. I just don't think that was clear,
Okay.
so. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we'll go right to public input on agenda items, and I just need the sign-in sheet, if it's around here somewhere.
Somebody have the sign-in sheet?
Thank you. Susan Levine?
Hi, I got a text and an email from Angela O'Connell from Fremont. She tried to send an email when she was getting on board a plane and it got stalled, so she only sent it at like 6:22 when you guys were in this meeting. So she had asked me if I could read it, if that's okay.
Sure.
It says, once again, I am writing since I am unable to attend tonight's meeting in person due to business travel. I wanted to address a few things during public input. Last week's lockdown, I understand the situation and commend the school and Fremont Police for this action. It brought to the forefront a concern that I've had for some time but haven't previously addressed due to thinking I may just be overprotective, if there is such a thing. I am concerned that there are no gates or signage across the pavement that surrounds the back of the school when the children are outside for recess. I am unsure what is allowed or not due to the need for emergency vehicle access, but feel at a minimum there should be a chain or metal rope with signage that's placed at both ends of the area that is used for the play area. Something like this would not stop someone from driving through it, but at least it would be a visual cue to cause most people to slow, stop, and take notice. My daughter was outside playing in this pavement area when the lockdown was called, and to hear that a drunk driver was passed out just a few hundred yards away with absolutely nothing to deter him from entering the pavement behind the school is too close for comfort for me. I've also personally seen delivery trucks go to enter that space to be stopped or told to back up as well. I would like to ask the school board to look into the feasibility of placing some type of temporary gate or signage, etc., that can be placed at the corners of the playgrounds that informs people the space is off limits while children are outside and playing. Discussion around the foreign language during last school board meeting. I understand prioritizing the science lab, and I am so excited to think that will hopefully become a reality next year. Thank you. I was going to suggest that if there was a balance this year, it be used to help deliver on the strategic plan of creating a science lab like last year's was used to replace the needed windows. As for not adding the foreign language program or staff, my concern is that if we reduce staff headcount, it appears to be much more difficult to add positions back in the future. At this point, it appears the funding is there to keep the current staff count, so if smaller classrooms warrant fewer teachers in the elementary section of the school, I would strongly suggest it be used to offer a language to the middle school. I understand there was some discussion around doing an after-school program, and while this is definitely better than nothing, my concern is that it may not be as structured as a class and may limit the number of children who participate. This will lead children to have to choose between other activities. This is the time I believe the children should use to do other things to round out their school experience. Being on sports teams, learning to play instruments, participating in Future City, the Lego Club, DI, getting additional academic help, etc. The parents, staff, and community members who filled out the curriculum committee survey stressed that science lab and foreign language were their two top priorities for the school. I also believe we need to offer both to become accredited. Therefore, I would like to ask the school board and administration to reconsider adding foreign language staff, even if it is a part-time position, next year to start languages with 7th and 8th graders. Respectfully submitted, Angela O'Connell, Gristmill Road, Fremont. So now it's me, Sue Levine, 72 Road Drive. I did have a
Voice.
few things. I wanted to also comment on the reduction that's being considered or proposed in terms of the kindergarten and first grade classrooms. I know you'll be voting on that tonight, and my kids are not going to be in kindergarten and first grade next year, but I still want to advocate for what I think is best for our school, and I personally, looking at the enrollment numbers for kindergarten, they're already at 30, and even if you only retain half of the 4 that are under consideration to be retained, you're at 32, which is where we're at this year with 3 classrooms. So to me, to cut a kindergarten teacher, while we may still be within the under the maximum recommended, I don't feel like the maximum recommended is who we are as a school, and it's not something we've strove for in the past. And I wouldn't recommend proceeding with cutting a classroom in both kindergarten and first grade, particularly knowing that there may be students that have needs that we want to be sure we have the right environment for them to be successful. And particularly with kindergarten, I think it's the first experience for some kids with formal education, and it's so important to paving their way with reading and everything else. So I would urge the school board to not do that. I do understand that you have the flexibility. You are required to notify teachers by April 15th, and then you always have that flexibility to hire back if the need is there and if enrollment goes up over the summer, but I think it's very disruptive to do that. And the numbers right now really, I think, warrant 3 classrooms in kindergarten, and that's without any additional enrollments that may come over the summer.
Can I ask you what the enrollment numbers are that you have?
I was looking at the packet and I thought it was 30 was what it said in the memo, and then there was 4 that could be retained. And the current enrollment numbers, I thought it started out the year at 32 and maybe it's down to 31.
So you think 10 students per classroom is what we should be striving for? I just want to make sure I have the numbers right, that I want to make sure you and I are talking the same numbers.
Yeah, and if you look at the enrollment currently, we're at 30, we started the year at 32 and we're at 31 in kindergarten, and what I
just
saw.
so you know, Sue, when we did the budget last year, we were told 15 per classroom for kindergarten. Okay, so the board did not approve a 10 children per classroom enrollment. We based our budget last year on a 15 per class.
Right.
Okay, so just so you know, even though it ended up at 10, we had staffed for 15 per class as a school board.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges that we have just in general at Ellis is that because we're not Manchester, we don't have 10 sections of a class, and I don't know if Manchester has those kind of numbers either, but we're not a huge school district, so we don't have, when you take out one classroom, it dramatically increases the other classes. So, going from, your choices between 10 and 17. And I think personally, my recommendation, and it's just my opinion, I would recommend I would recommend that we don't, go down to 2 classrooms in kindergarten.
So
But-
you said 17, so you think there's 34 kindergarten students coming in?
Well, there's 30 and there's 4 recommended for retention, and that's assuming that no one enrolls over the summer. So 34 would be if all 4 are retained, and obviously that's something that needs to be worked through with the teacher and the family and the guidance team. So, you know, those decisions aren't made for you to consider today. But I think, you know, where I was going in terms of how in Fremont, you know, you're jumping from, and this is kind of across the board, if you cut a class from classes that seem really small to classes that are kind of at the top of where you want to be. You know, maybe there are other alternative ways of structuring the classroom, of co-teaching, or you know, combining. I don't know. I have friends in education in other states, and you know, I think there may be creative opportunities to explore something beyond just eliminating a classroom. So, I just wanted to offer that as my input on that agenda item. I also wanted to, as Angela said, recommend that we can use the fiscal year 14 surplus to put in a science lab, as well as some of the deferred maintenance. Mr. Brown had a whole list of items that were critical for this year that didn't get in the budget. So anything along those lines that could be done with those funds, I wanted to support. In terms of looking out to next year's budget, the fiscal year 15 budget, I'm sure you'll be discussing this in detail in terms of the money that's coming back from the Sanborn reduced GMR that can offset those budget committee cuts. Don't know if we have the final rate from Sanborn, and we may have a better idea. But okay, thank you. I personally am very much in favor of trying to push for foreign language in middle school. If we have the funding for it and we have the classroom space for it, I don't know why we wouldn't try to put that in place, but there may be things I'm not aware of, but I am very much in favor of that. Also making sure that our supply line for teachers is funded. And I wondered what the thought was on NEASC. I'm not necessarily advocating that we, because that was one of the items cut by BudCom. I don't know if that's something that is gonna be discussed as part of the strategic plan, and maybe we wanna put that off, but I just wanted to know, you know, hopefully that'll be discussed later tonight when you guys talk about fiscal year 15. I wanted to mention that, I'm not in favor of the, suing of the federal government. I personally, would just, the legal expenses of that, and just the time and energy. The school board, you have so much on your plate right now, and to me that seems like something that would be a distraction. And as well as, you know, the tax dollars to go for legal counsel for that. I also hope that the board will support the teacher's appeal for a revote. I feel that, you know, it's been a really long time that our teachers have been without a contract, and I know last time I raised the thought of perhaps some kind of merit-based pool that we feel is not an option. So anything we can do to try to rectify that, you know, the lack of a contract, I would be in support of. And I also wanted to mention on the strategic planning, I hope that we will go out to the community to ask for volunteers, because, you know, the curriculum committee, there may be people that are interested, but there may be other people, new people who have kids just coming in, that might want an opportunity to contribute, and anything we can do to help engage new voices is always a good thing. And that was all I had for my notes, so thank you very much for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cindy Crane, I think it's Crane.
Yes.
Okay.
I would just like to provide my input with respect to eliminating kindergarten and first grade teacher positions. My son's in third grade, so I have no personal incentive other than what I think is good for the school and the overall community. We moved here about a year ago, and the elementary school my son was in previously was much larger and had a much larger classroom sizes. There are 27 children in his kindergarten class, 22 in his first grade, and 19 in second grade. And with those numbers, and granted, you're all talking about keeping it to 15, but still, the more children in the class, the more time is focused by the teacher on controlling the children as opposed to teaching the children. And my understanding from what I've read in the news regarding early education is they're finding how important it is to start with the reading and the math with the younger students as opposed to hoping that they will catch up later on.
No, excuse me, early education, you mean kindergarten?
Yes,
Okay.
and even, well, even before that, but I'm talking kindergarten.
Mhm.
But the younger you can have these children engaged in learning how to read and learning the math, the better off. So I think for those reasons, it would be appropriate to retain those positions.
Thank you. Cindy Turkington? Hi, Cindy.
Hi, I'm here as a parent of an incoming kindergarten student, and I personally feel like 17 or whatever the number is a lot of kids to beginning to learn how to read, how to count, how to do math. And again, someone said about managing the class, the more kids you have in there, the more kids you're gonna be managing their behavior and not being able to give them the individual attention they need in order to start reading and writing. And also, I know that in general, Fremont's been really good about keeping their class sizes down. And I think that if there were 17 kids in a class, I think there would be several kids that might get left behind because they can't get the attention of the teacher for what they need. So I'm in favor of keeping both the kindergarten and first grade positions.
Thank you. Jennifer Rydeen. Hi, Jen.
I'm here to talk about, let me think, I hate talking in public. I guess I'm talking about how the budget has been passed. The community has supported your budget. The community has voted for that in the contract, so those things are behind us now, and going forward, I feel it's important for me to stand and say that I support our teachers. I think they work really hard every day. I haven't been in the school as much due to my busy schedule, and lately when I come in, I have to be honest, the vibe isn't that great. I have to say that if I were in a working environment where there were cuts every year and there wasn't community support of the job that I felt that I was doing, and doing well, and clearly achievement is up, so they are doing very well. It would be hard for me to be in a good mood every day too. So I want to support my teachers, and I hope that you will too. I do agree with what's been spoken to already. I do understand the numbers are low, but I think this is more than that. I think that you're gonna disrupt the community environment. I think we've had morale issues in the past, and I could probably talk that to death, and I don't want to, but I do believe that that's very important. I believe that having community support gives you that pat on the back that says, you know what, yeah, you did do a good job, and thank you. They didn't get that with their contract for the 5th or 6th year in a row. So to now make cuts, I think, is kind of a slap in the face. That's my opinion. However, I understand that you do need to do certain things. And I know that I could talk all day, and whatever you do, it's your choice. But I really think and hope that you will consider that, make decisions deliberately and consciously of that. I think it's very important. Also, I hope that you'll support them in the revote. I know it's potentially a financial thing, but I also think that supporting that would give them the chance to at least, you know, gain increased support from the community, which didn't really come through in the vote this time around. I also have to say that with the item about suing the government, if we have funds to put towards anything, I hope that you won't put it towards that. I hope that we'll focus on a foreign language teacher or other things that benefit our students. Maybe that benefits our students in a roundabout way, but I don't see it. So I hope that that you think about that carefully. And that's about it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Deb Gaffner? Hi, Deb.
Hi guys. Hey. I'm here, you know, there's so many people that have already said so many things that I've been thinking, so I would probably be, you know, repeating a bit, but I just want to say that I'm here in favor and in support of our amazing teachers. I read an article recently that talked about how our school has been doing really well academically. We're making great strides. I'm here to say that it's because of the teachers, and we are so lucky to have these amazing teachers. So that's why I'm supporting them.
Thank you. Antia? I hope I said that right.
I guess I'm not gonna reiterate what everybody's already said. I guess I'm just gonna say, as a reminder, I have a third grader, and when she was in kindergarten, there were 9 kids in her class, and there was no discussion of cutting any teachers at that point.
What was that? I didn't hear the end of that. What was
I said
that?
there was no discussion then of cutting teachers at that point.
Yeah, that was Matt, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Let's see.
Yeah, thank you,
So-
everybody, for contributing.
We're gonna move right to, section 12B, 1, which is, FEA petition request for revote,
All right,
which is page
89?
89. Okay, so I talked to Peter Phillips, he got back from vacation. And, I don't know how much of this I can say in public. Do you think?
I
He
think
sent
if-
us,
I think if you need to discuss strategy, then it needs to be a non-meeting. If you need to,
no, I guess I'll just inform them
right,
about
it's
his,
just
What
information.
his opinion is, right?
right. Basically, I wrote to Peter today just because I had had a verbal conversation with him. I wanted to find out what he had talked to Jay about, the rep from the union. And Jay, Peter Phillips has basically recommended that, we would have to go back into negotiations with the teachers before we could ask for a special meeting and petition the court. Because you couldn't bring the same agreement forward without any changes. He does not recommend that we have a special meeting for this because he believes that the warrant, the public voted no on the warrant and the public voted no on a special meeting. And he believes that even if you went to Superior Court with it, chances are they may not grant you the right to do it. And if they did, he doesn't believe it would pass in town because people would be very upset that you would go to another special meeting even though they told you you couldn't. So, in the warrant article, so he's not recommending we do a special meeting per se, but he does think that we should work with the teachers to start conversations and about getting a better contract to bring forward the next time. So,
Really?
what?
I'm sorry, but
So,
What?
what the board has to decide is, do we want to at least try to get to try to get an agreement with the teachers that we think we could bring forward, and do we have any interest in doing a special meeting? And could we, the whole thing is, you can't go forward with the agreement we have now.
Right.
The one that was ratified was voted down, so that one can't come back forward, even in a special meeting. As it stands, it would have to be adjusted somehow.
Is that what the teacher's lawyer says as well, or do they think it can?
Yes.
So both
No, they,
lawyers-
yeah, during the meeting, it was indicated that they knew that something would have to change. There'd have to be some tweaking.
My concern is this, and it's not that I don't support the teacher's contract, but my concern is that if we went ahead and had a special meeting after the voters said no, that we're gonna end up alienating enough of the voters of the town where we'll never get anything passed again. And we also have the Paris contract we have to be concerned about, and I don't wanna put that in jeopardy, you know, by going against the town's wishes when they said no means no. And, you know, I do not wanna get in that position. I think it'll have a negative impact. Not only will we have to spend money to go to Superior Court where we may get denied, so that's a legal expense we'd have to take. It also, there's the expense of running the meeting, but also the fact that my concern is that, you know, we'll end up turning voters against us. And it may not pass, it may not, and that could mean a big turnout. Because remember, it's not gonna be voted at, throughout the deliberative session, and it'll be voted in the voting booth. And you're taking a chance that even if we did, it'd be voted down again, just because people are mad. So, I don't think it's really, I think it's too big a risk, both legally and I think for the school board, and for the teachers and for the paras. Too big a risk that we're gonna eliminate if we go ahead and go forward with it. That is my concern.
Greg, do you have an opinion? Or do you want to discuss anything?
So, I mean, I'd like to see if we can try to work something. You know, we talk about the town said no. What kills me is a lot of people didn't vote. So, do they really care? I mean, is it no, they're saying no, is it just they didn't want to take the time to vote? I mean, first I heard what the lawyer said, but, you know.
Yeah, I just got it this
Yeah.
evening. It came in.
See, I mean, just to address that, Greg, I understand what you're saying, but the reality is, it wasn't just the teacher's contract that suffered. The roads, bond issues for road improvements were voted down, the fire engine was voted down. It wasn't specific to the teachers, it wasn't specific to the school board, it was just the people in the town didn't wanna spend any extra money. They saw the $60,000 on the warrant article, and they said no. And so it wasn't, so it's not like people were picking on the teachers. It happened all across the board. You know, the town has got a road that's really falling apart, and there's no way they can fix it.
Something that made me in favor though is now we know we're giving back $350,000 to the town. And so if we did have the special meeting, that's more information we can give it. Well, this money is coming back already.
Right, but we may go through all the legal expenses of going to Superior Court and us being denied.
What is the
anyway.
legal expense?
We have to hire a lawyer to go to the court, and we don't know how much that's gonna cost.
Do you know the estimate?
I can't estimate legal fees, but it's about $5,000 to run another meeting.
Right.
So you're probably looking at six.
$6,000?
I'm gonna guess, that's a ballpark figure. Lori had done those figures for you before she left, about $5,000 for the meeting.
To run a meeting,
To run a meeting.
but that's not the cost of
But
going to the
I
Superior,
don't know what
file
the
a
filing.
petition, right?
Yeah, the filing would be.
Filing, arguing, preparing for the case.
You don't have to represent.
Well,
Can I ask a couple questions?
yeah, I was gonna say.
Has this ever been done before? Is there any like case history that, I was just curious, has it ever been done? Cause I don't know any details
Do you mean
on it.
in Fremont?
No, not in Fremont, but anywhere
in the
in New
state.
Hampshire
Right.
in the state of New Hampshire?
Legal precedent.
Have they ever had the, yeah.
I think so, but I don't know the specific cases, but it's something that can be done according to the RSA.
Well,
It's just not advisable by our attorney, because
Right.
I don't understand why we think that the voters are gonna say yes this time if they said no twice. No to the special meeting and no to the,
We have more information.
I don't have, we have what?
We have more information, at least about money, there's $350,000 going back to the town. Andy already did the calculations that it's essentially level funding what we did this year, the budget, and that's new information. It was close.
yeah, I
I'm
just,
trying to look at the
right,
numbers. now, see what it
but we're
was.
looking at two things. Number one,
It's, you know
it's
what?
not guaranteed the Superior Court would approve it.
No,
Okay, so that's number one, and he has his doubts as to this. He said you can always go to Superior Court, we can always go to court. There's nothing says we can't go to court, but there's a lot of things that says whether we'll win or not. And the weight is that we probably won't win. The second thing is like.
It's not really winning, it's just a petition and they say, yes, you can, or no, you
yeah,
can't.
well,
I mean,
you're winning. You're winning when they say yes, and you're losing when they say no. But the other side of the coin is, like I said, we have the Paris contract, we have our budget next year. Do we want to risk alienating the town by going back a second time with the budget and then coming back and maybe voting no, going through all that expense? It could cost $10,000-$15,000, including legal fees, and have people say no again. And then people coming back and saying no next year, again, to everything we offer because we're mad about what we did. And then you may end up without a teacher's contract for another year. So, you know, they said no, and I don't think they said no, like I said, because they picked on the teachers. I think they said no to everything across the board, town and school. And I think, and I think we have, as much as we may not like it, I think we need to respect it. You know, they spoke twice, and I really don't think it's a good idea to try to think we can get people to give voice their opinion a third time.
So I think it's worth looking into, just for the sheer fact that we have more information. $350,000 going back.
Would you add the support staff in there too? How was that?
Would
You know, I mean,
Okay.
would it be just the teachers? Would it be support staff
I don't know.
also?
Can you do both? With the teacher union?
I'm just curious. I mean, I only saw that bringing forward for the
comments?
teachers.
I really think it would be more productive to try to work with the teachers and educate the town. You know, we have a lot of opportunity to do that through the focus of the strategic plan and get them more involved and see what the need is, as opposed to, as you said, going against the voters when they've spoken. And it's not a short thing, and it's against the advice of the attorney. So I think there's a lot of indicators there, and I think that would indicate that would be a wiser course of action.
Just one more thing real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, 'cause I'm gonna say my piece.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, also, later on in the meeting, when I give my committee report with the selectmen would understand the difficulty they've had and we've had in passing our budget. And they would like to have a joint meeting with us to strategize as to what is, just to sort of talk about what do we need to do, you know, to get these things passed. So I don't know whether the school board's gonna go along with that or not, but, you know, things are moving, people are talking about what we can do.
I really feel, I feel it's a strange thing to wanna go back to the voters with a contract on a special meeting. When they've said, if they had said yes to the special meeting if the article hadn't passed, I'd have no problem, obviously, with doing it, but when they said no twice, I think it should give us pause. I think we should wonder what is going on, and I think we should all think about what we're asking for so much, because every time we increase the operating budget, or keep it even the same, we risk not being able to pay our teachers better, and they are the ones that are doing all of the work. And we're not able to help them because our operating budget continues to grow and go up and cost the taxpayers money, and they have one choice with the budget. They have spend more or spend more than more. That's their only choice with the budget warrant. Okay, it's not like they're saying, yeah, go ahead, take the money. They have no choice. You either get the default or you get your operating, but either one costs them money, more money. And so every time that happens in our district, we no longer have the opportunity to get our teachers a good contract. We no longer have the opportunity to get any warrants passed that are gonna cost any additional money, because we're not controlling our costs when we can. I am very surprised that the community believes that it would be a good idea to keep kindergarten class sizes at 10. I'm very surprised. This board, not, you know, we have some new members, but the board has worked very hard to keep class sizes small, but not to 10. I mean, that to us, to me, I shouldn't speak for the board, is really a little bit beyond where I'm willing to go to spend the taxpayers' money wisely and to do a good job for our district. I think it's asking too much, and we can't keep doing that and want to get the teacher's contract passed and not be able to, we have to have some give and take on both ends. We cannot keep spending money because we like it, we like 10 versus 15 better, when we know 15 is a fine size for a kindergarten classroom.
We'll talk about that more when we talk about the
But-
15.
But the point is, it
15
affects
budget.
our teacher contracts.
Yes,
It affects our opportunity to pass a teacher's contract. We cannot give them what they're asking for, even if we agree with it, because we don't have enough money to do that in this town. It's that simple, and we have to start facing reality with it.
Ida, may I say something about the?
I'm gonna ask if the board wants to allow the public to speak as a public input one last time, but we're gonna limit everybody to about a minute apiece if they'd like to respond to this. Because I'd like to hear what people really think is gonna happen if we go to a revote.
Well, I like, if we do that, I would like to make sure that people only talk about this issue.
Yes.
Don't talk about the budget, because we're not talking about the budget in general, we're only talking about this issue, okay? Because we'll get a chance to talk about the budget.
Well, they work
Soon.
together. I
Yeah, they
mean,
do
I
work
have to
together.
tell you, one impacts the other,
Yes,
as
they
we've
do.
learned.
Yes, they do.
And so, is it okay with the board if we,
Yeah.
just open it up for a minute apiece?
Yeah, one.
And just, if you
Take
raise your
one.
hand and just tell your name and where you live, that would be great.
Sharon Gerard, 90th Street. I just want to let you guys know that, if memory serves me, I read somewhere that when you have a special meeting and then you take a vote, it needs to be passed perhaps by half, the majority of the registered voters.
Yes.
So that's something to consider, because I believe we had 3,000 registered voters and we only had a little under 1,000 that actually came out to vote. So if you then go through the process of a special meeting and you don't even get 1,000 people that come out to vote, you've not met that requirement.
That's true, that is right.
Did anybody else wanna say
Yeah, I guess
anything?
I'm-
Oh, sorry, I'm
Cindy
sorry.
Crane?
What is it? I'm sorry.
Cindy Crane on Scrivener Road. I agree that if, yes, they voted down not just the contract, but the special meeting, so it would behoove us not to annoy them. Just as next year rolls around and you get new contracts, is there any way, and I think it's a great idea to strategize with the selectmen, because as you pointed out, nothing is getting passed, we can't even get a fire truck for crying out loud. Is there any way to even incorporate it into the, and this shows my ignorance of the process, is there any way to even incorporate a raise into the budget so it's not a separate line item?
Not when you have a teachers' union, no.
Yeah, the law requires that the cost for the teacher for a new contract have to be a separate warrant article. I mean, you include in the budget, because if you're projecting it passes, you would include the expenses in the budget, but but the approval for the expenditure has to be a separate warrant article.
Brittany Thompson, 81 Bramber Circle. I had just two quick things. One thing was about I know you brought up the roads, but when we went to the town meeting, they did not have a very strategic plan for the roads, and they just said Whittier Drive. They didn't say, we looked at all the roads in Fremont and said Whittier Drive is the worst. So I'm thinking that's why that suffered, because there wasn't actually a plan in place. My second thing was that at the last school board meeting, it was brought up that in the first grade, there were some very severe behaviors and disabilities that were taking into account those small class sizes. And I haven't heard that discussed at all when we're talking about the class sizes, so I was just hoping that would be discussed.
I think when we talk about the budget, and we talk about the
Staffing.
staffing, that will come up.
Sue?
Hi, Sue Lee, 72 Road Drive. I totally support strategizing for next year with the selectmen and trying to get things passed. But when we talk about how the budget keeps going up and we need to be, giving to get, the budget hasn't been going up because the teachers are getting more because they haven't had a contract. The budget's been going up because healthcare costs have been going up and because retirement funding has gone up. So the budget hasn't gone up because this board has been irresponsible with planning or irresponsible with funding or building a budget. It's gone up because there's been uncontrollable things. So, I think, and it's just, it feels like every year we're having the same conversation and, the one thing I know is, if we keep doing things the same way, we're not going to get a different result, or we shouldn't expect to get a different result. So, I support any kind of creative thinking that we can do to try to help support our teachers and get a contract passed for them.
So how do you feel about the petition, Sue?
It's hard. I mean, I feel I want our teachers to have a contract. I want to support them in whatever we can. But if what you're saying is that we have to have 1,500 people at a meeting, then I don't know what the point is.
I mean, that means vote, when you go out to vote, there has to be, not at the deliberative session, but when we have the vote. Because there'll be deliberative session, and then there'll be the vote. That's where the 1,500 people have to show up.
I don't know how we'd get 1,500 people to vote, to me, like that.
Well, it's not only just voting, then they all have to vote yes,
Right.
the 1,500.
I don't know if I'm allowed to speak because I don't live here in Fremont, so you can.
We're gonna allow you to
Okay.
speak, Deb.
Hi, Deborah Allman, I teach here at Fremont, at Ellis School. And I guess we received an email today from the front office. She's been keeping us updated on the current kindergarten registrations, and it's at 31 right now, according to the last email we got. So when you add potentially those other 4 children, you are at, far more than 10 in a class, or even 15 in a class. You've surpassed the 17 that I think Dr. Cox referred to in one of her documents. So it's very, very important for these young children to have as much individualized instruction as possible at this early age. They need to have that opportunity for things to be differentiated. And when you have 16, 17, 18, even 15 sometimes, depending on the makeup of the group, it makes it much, much more difficult to offer them those opportunities and that opportunity to become a learner, which is what a lot of kindergarten time is about, becoming a learner and learning how to do that. So I understand that 10 seems like a low number, and I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but I am saying that there's a reason for that. And sometimes I think that when studies are done and people that don't live it and walk it are looking at it, and I'm talking about some of the research done, not you people here, I'm talking about they see, oh, well, it's only 17 children or only 17 bodies. They can fit in that space. They can fit in that space. But are they going to be the best learners, and are they going to get the education that you are telling us that you want our students to have, is I guess what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So.
One quick thing to piggyback on that Dawn kid, they do live here in Fremont, but I also teach her. Number one, I'd like to know historically, over the past few years, how many kids sign up for kindergarten and first grade from about mid-April to the end of August. I've been in here in the summer and I've watched kids sign up, and we all know there are parents who go, oh my goodness, school starts soon, I forgot to sign up my kid. It does happen. So I'd like to see the data on that, how many traditionally sign up during that period, and can we anticipate 2 or 3 more kids? If we can anticipate 2 or 3 more, then we're clearly over that 17 that we've set as a baseline.
Okay,
And then-
I don't mean to interrupt you, Don, but we're supposed to be talking about the petition.
I'm sorry, I thought we were also talking about those
It's-
two. All right.
Yeah, no, but we are really, I opened the floor to hear how you felt about the petition.
I'm sorry,
And
I didn't see
it's
that
okay,
from you.
but
so
I need to
that's fine.
control it a little, or we'll be here until midnight. Did you have anything that you wanted to say about the petition?
loads, but I'm not going to.
Anybody else?
One thing, it's, geez, no, I can't even talk. I was just thinking about how many people who voted. I bet you if you asked, if you took a poll or a survey, how many people did not realize that the teachers will not get a step. If they said no, what happens? I bet you, I actually heard rumors that certain people said, don't worry, you vote no, and they're not getting anything, so don't worry about it, you won't, nothing will increase. I mean, stuff like that happens, where you have folks in town, you talk about folks that, you know, are worried about every penny, and I understand that, but who is voting? And on the other side, we have parents who didn't realize that, so maybe they were trying to save and say, well, I won't vote for the contract this year because I know they're gonna get a step anyway. I don't think it was clear that the step wasn't happening, so that's my fear. Whether or not the petition will pass, I understand your view. They voted no twice, so the likelihood of this happening, and it is expensive, so to use money for, you know, in this way to, you know, petitions or suing or whatever is silly. We have enough lawyer fees without, you know, finding more. But I ask that in the future, it's extremely clear to the voters. The teachers who aren't at the top step aren't getting additional money, and the teachers, of course, aren't getting additional money, so they're staying the same. And with insurance going up, and I really don't think people understood what you tried very clearly to say at the deliberative session, that this contract allows us to shop. I don't know how many people really understood what that meant. So I'm concerned about the future of it ever passing. And that's it.
You know, one of the issues we have when we present the warrant article is that we had to present the cost of the warrant article. We're not allowed to present the offsetting costs. So we couldn't put on the warrant article that, oh, it's gonna cost the $60,000, but we're gonna save so much money in insurance, so it's only gonna cost us.
It does include all that.
It did
doesn't?
include it,
Include the savings in insurance?
It does.
Yeah.
In the warrant article?
It's the
Yeah.
overall cost, it's
Includes
It
the
was the overall
offsets.
cost,
Yeah,
okay.
that would include
I'm
the
not saying it
savings.
didn't include the offsets.
It included the savings.
So, just to finish up, what Peter Phillips said too was the, under the law RSA 273A, Peter Phillips is our attorney. Once the legislative body, in this case the school district voters, rejects a tentative agreement, the obligation on the parties to bargain continues, and they may reopen negotiations on any and all items. So, from a technical standpoint, the reps don't have to agree to reopen negotiations, but usually the party reps are able to agree on when to resume negotiations, with the goal of reaching a settlement before the end of the school year or at the beginning of the next school year. Under either scenario, we would need to be clear with the union that any tentative agreement would be contingent upon not going to a special meeting, but if that's what the board decides, given the results of the contingent warrant articles in March. That's what he said.
Not sure I understood what you just said.
He's basically saying the negotiations are pretty much still open because nothing ever finished.
Okay.
And that his recommendation